Hi and welcome to my channel, it's Kaz here. Today we are making an owl on a 22-pin circular knitting machine, so stay tuned. For this project you're going to need a 22-pin circular knitting machine, a scissors, a tapestry needle, some pins and some fabric clips. You're also going to need some stuffing, some safety eyes, and these are the cartoon type safety eyes. As you can see, it goes off to one side and they're 18mm. A brown one which is about 18mm as well, and a smaller approximately 16mm black eye. Any of those will be suitable, but of course you can also embroider an eye or use the felt ones if you prefer. And just be mindful that these may not be suitable for children under a certain age. I'm using a range of yarns for this project. I'm using an Aran beige for the body combined with 2 strands of this beautiful DK yarn to make it a little bit thicker. I'm using orange for the feet and the beak, and I'm going to be using brown and the yellow for the eyes. These 3 here are DK weight. So I've caked my yarn ready for this project, and as it's a DK yarn and a little bit thin for what I want, but I really like the colours in it for this particular size owl, I'm going to be using 2 strands. So I've caked it with 2 strands. So let's make a start. Needle 1. We're going to cast on as normal, and I'm going to treat it exactly the same as if it was 1 strand all the way around the bed of the machine. Now normally I'd use an Aran weight yarn. As you know, I'm a great fan of Aran yarn for these projects. Pull that down. I'm going to 0 my clock. So 15 rounds now in this yarn, taking it slow for the first couple of rows while this machine gets used to having 2 strands running through it, because sometimes my Addi 22 is a little bit of a naughty boy. We're past the first few naughty rows and we're going to do 15 rows. Now hopefully you won't get that problem, because you probably are not going to be using 2 strands of DK. But my Addi 22 has gone a little bit strange on the first few rows anyway, whether I'm using 1 row, 1 yarn or 2. So we're on 11, 12 now, 13, 14, 15 rows. There we go. So we're going to snip that off now, and we're going to change to our other yarn, and I'm using a beige, and this is just an ordinary Aran based yarn, so it's just 1 strand this time, and we're going to knit 30 rows now. So catch that around, then I'm going to tie it together just to stop it from coming undone, and I'm going to move on now to 30 rows, which will be row 45 on my counter, and I'll see you back very shortly. And of course you can do this project in 1 colour. You don't have to do split colours here. It's just that my prototype is 1 colour, and I thought let's split it now, so give you the options of doing this project in 2 different colours if that's the style that you'd like to do. Coming up to row 45 now. There we go. Snip that off and change back to our 2 strands of DK yarn in this lovely woodlandy colour. Pop that in, and we're going to continue knitting now to row 60, and hopefully my Addi will be happy now. Tie those together again and knit on now to row 60, and our whole project is 60 rows. So if you are working with a single colour, then it's just 60 rows from start to finish before we cast off. And as a normal cast off, no waste yarn required. Our last one, row 60. So now we're just going to cut a nice long tail. Mine's about 12-14 inches long, and it's the usual cast off routine. Yarn on a darning needle. I'm using the one that came with the Addi with the curved end on it like that, and we're just going to cast off as we normally do. One stitch at a time. What I find with the Addi 22 is this screw here is perfect if you're a beginner. Line your stitch up with that little screw there and do them one at a time. See, lines up perfectly, and one at a time, and take them off. If you do decide to buy the pattern that goes with this 22 version, all the sizes will be on there for the 40 pin and the 46-48 pin as well. So you can make the medium and the large size owl, or the Gwdihŵ, which is a lovely Welsh word for owl, Gwdihŵ. And this is the piece that we knitted up on our 22 pin machine. If you remember, we did 15 rows, 30 rows and 15 rows, 60 rows in total, and you can do it completely in one colour if you'd like to do that. There's no need to split the colours. If you want a one colour owl, that's perfectly fine. Okay, now don't forget to make sure that you've tied off your colour joins there. Okay, make sure that they're all nicely tied off. Okay, and snip those ends off then once you've done that. So I've already tied mine, so snip those off, making sure that these are all nice and tight and tied together. So just snip those, job done. And we are going to turn the work one side inside the other as if we were making a beanie, exactly the same, no different whatsoever at this point. So line up your tails, so we make sure we've got a nice straight beanie. There we go, so all our lines and tubes should all be in line now. And like I said at the beginning, I've used 2 strands of DK yarn, so this is really quite thick there now. Okay, so be careful if you're going to do that on your machine. I just wanted to make sure that this was going to be thick enough. And what we're going to do now is we're going to grab these clips that we got here, and once we've got our tails lined up, we need to make sure that our bottom edge isn't going to move at all. So I'm going to pop around and pop a little clip every couple of inches or so to make sure that's 100% meeting at the bottom there like that. Use pins if you like, or even pegs if you don't have these fabric clips, which are very, very handy, by the way. They're not expensive either. Like that. Now it doesn't matter if you're doing this particular pattern which way you hold the tube. Now if you've bought the pattern, you'll have instructions there, because I've added some detail for the belly there, which again is an optional thing, but a little bit too much detail for the small version, so I've not included it here. So at this point we add the template, mark that template out, and we need to do some stitching. So I've got my template here, and this is of course my my test template. If you buy the pattern, all the templates are included for the 2240 and 4648, and you can print those out. This is one that I've done, and look what it's done on a cornflakes. Let's hide that, on a cornflakes box. Okay, so I always reuse everything. So what we do is we just place it on the top there like that, and to make doubly sure that my top edge is completely flat and not going to move, I'm going to put a little clip there as well. Okay, so hold your template on the top there, lining up with your left and right, bearing in mind that when you use any of the other size templates, you may find a little bit of a size difference. That's because of tension and yarn choice, things like that. Just adjust slightly. You can even stretch your work out a little bit. And I've got an ordinary Sharpie pen here, but you can use a fabric marker and lightly mark that template out like that onto your work, and get your tapestry needle at the ready for the next stage. Next, you just remove your pattern template and keep that for your next project, and grab your tapestry needle and pop a nice long length of yarn on there. I've got probably about 2 feet of yarn, And what we're going to do now is a little bit of stitching. Okay, so this curves up and around there, like that. So we are going to put a little holding stitch and knot on the corner there, like that. Pull that tight. And we're going to overcast for about 1 centimetre in. That means we just go from back to front so that the loops go across there like that. Like that, okay? And then we are going to do a running stitch or a back stitch. I think it's called a back stitch. So we're going to stop there now. That's about 1 centimetre in or so on the right hand side. And now we're going to switch to down all the way through the layers, okay? All the way through. And back up about 1 centimetre along your marked line like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch along that line, seal that up. Okay, and then back through where your yarn came out last time. And like that. And we're going to join every stitch up. It'll be very much like a sewing machine stitch. And back through that one there. And through there like that. So there's no gap between the stitches at all. And I also like to do a second row of stitches just to make doubly sure everything is fine and dandy. When you get back up to the top, then we need to slip stitch across that last centimetre across the top there, like that. And that's the first row of the stitching done. Now you can turn your work out and see what your stitch line looks like. You may very well be happy with it with just 1 row of stitches. Can remove that now as well, but I like to put 2 rows in. So what I'm going to do now is to double back, just with a couple of stitches across there like that, and I'm going to go back down now the opposite way, and if you can see those stitches there now, they're quite small and it's difficult to see with the same colour yarn, but I'm going to bridge as best I can. You can see the gap there. I'm going to bridge, so I'm going to go from there to there, and from there to there, and there to there, and so on. Okay, so that's the plan. I'll put it back on the table now, just to make sure that I've got a really good seam for when we turn this project out. So you carry on and do that now, and then we'll be ready for turning our work the right side out. I'll carry on with making our cute little Gwdihŵ owl. And technically I'm saying owl there, because Gwdihŵ is owl in Welsh. And there's our double line of stitching completed. I'll just finish off now with a little knot at the top there, and then we'll turn our work out and make sure that our stitching is nice and neat. So I'm not going to cut this off just yet. I can remove all the clips now from the bottom, just keeping our work nice and flat and straight. And let's turn this out now and see what we've got. We need to grab these corners here and push them right out like that. So pop your finger in and push that out, and then you end up with that lovely little shape there. Yeah, the stitching is looking reasonably good. Happy with that. You can even take the tip of your Sharpie pen and pop it through there. Don't worry about stretching those stitches for a minute because they go back into shape, but you just need to push those corners out because this is the shape of the owl that we want to achieve. And don't worry about that bit we've stitched in. That's going to become part of the stuffing when we stuff our little owl, which is the next thing to do. So now that we've turned our little owl body out, we're going to grab our stuffing. Got mine here. Remember to fluff it and add a little bit of air into it. And it's important that we stuff the ears first, okay, our little owl ears. Stuff those properly first. We don't want any air pockets or any loose pockety bits in the ear section or any section of this make at all. Okay, so pop those in there like that. Stick that stuffing up there with your finger till you're nice and plumpy. Okay, and then we can add a little bit into the center. Check that stuffing level all the time. Make sure you're happy with it. I'm gonna pop my pin in there like that. Pull my tip out like that to make sure it's nice and out as far as it can go, so we get a nice point. Grab a little bit more stuffing and start stuffing the body section now. And you stuff yours as much as you feel it needs to be stuffed. You can see it's forming that lovely little shape there now. So there, we're happy with that at the moment, nice and plump. A little bit more now to finish off the bottom and we should be done. So cinch the inner part, exactly like making a beanie. Cinch that inner circle first. Cinch that outer one then. I had to loosen a couple of little bits of bits that were stuck. So the inner one is cinched, the outer one is cinched. And we're going to do exactly as we do with a beanie. We're just going to tie a couple of knots. 2 knots. And I'm going to do my second knot as a wraparound, if it'll let me. There we go, cool. There we go. Now we can trim this off a little shorter. Keep those tails, you never know. And if your hole is a little loose like mine is there, pop it onto a darning needle, grab a tail or two, put a few knots before you bury your yarn tails inside the body of your owl. Okay, well this is an owlet, isn't it? That's a baby owl, isn't it? An owlet. So a couple of little stitches across to pull that in nicely, and that'll be job done. And I'm sure you won't have this problem like I had here. So snip that one off, and I put a little bit of tension on it and then snip it, and then it disappears inside. That's the way I do it. Okay, and then we plump, and there we go. There we have our tiny little baby owlet so far. So now we'll move on to the next stage. The other pieces you need to knit on your 22 pin machine in order to finish your owl are as follows. 3 lots of 6 rows. One's going to be the beak, and these 2 are going to be the little feet. Okay. For the wings you need to knit 12 rows. If you're sticking to one colour, 12 rows. And for this one, because I'm going with the 2 colours, I've split it 4 rows and 8 rows there. So 12 rows for the wings. And for the eyes you need to knit 6 rows. Whether you're sticking to one colour or 2, it's 6 rows. I split mine 2 of the yellow and 4 of the brown, and let me tell you, these little parts here are very fiddly to work with, so we're going to have to a little bit of patience, but it'll be worth it in the end. So as you can see, I've made one eye up already, and this is a very fiddly twiddly piece, okay? So I've knitted 6 rows in total, 2 rows in yellow and 4 rows in the dark brown. Now I had many different options of eyes and different colorways, and I'll show you a few that I went with here. I did some bigger eyes, which were too big for this particular one. I did some beige ones and a paler beige, but in the end I opted for the yellow because yellow for owls is the colour to go for, I think. Well, in this one I'm going for yellow, but you can choose whatever colour you want to choose, okay? So this is our little piece, and we need to cinch up the one end. Now obviously don't forget to tie your colour joints together, again very fiddly. Alright, I've already tied mine together tightly there, okay, and we need to cinch together both ends. So we cinch together the yellow and cinch together the brown, and then we get a chance to actually stretch out our work, because up until this point it is very twiddly to do so. So flatten it, we want to make it into a circle. Now at this point we don't want the tail of the yellow coming through at the front, we want to pop it through the back. I'll show you the reason why now in a minute. So pop that yellow tail through to the back, so we've got both tails coming out of the brown side, the dark side, okay. Now it's going to be, it's quite difficult to get this into a perfect circle, and I doubt very much whether you'll get it into a 100% perfect circle. And that little colour join is popping through there, but not to worry. And this is where now I add my centre eye, and I'm using this brown eye here. Plastic is still on it to protect the surface at the moment. And I like to pop the eye in the centre there, so I'm not struggling later on with such a small piece. So while the hole is still not totally sealed up, I'll pop my eye in the middle like that, and then turn it over. And this is when I cinch together, okay, to make it nice and tight around that part of the eye before I add the closure piece onto the back. And now, because I'm happy it's nicely cinched around that centre post, let's move this little eye out of the way here. We've got our tails again all tangled up. This is where now I'll tie it together around that centre post, nice and tight like that, okay. And I'm using DK yarn for the eye because, like I said, it's very difficult to get a full circle. We'll have to tweak it a little bit, and when we sew it, to get it circular on this particular size of owl. But trust me, it's doable. So that was one knot, so we're going to put another knot there now. Pull that through, tie that off. Centre post done like that. I'm going to chop the yellow bit off because I don't need that one. Just going to chop it off short. No need to tuck it in or anything, because that'll be hidden now when we attach it on. And all we need to do now is to grab the back of the eye. So grabbing the back of the eye, this is now where I'm going to pop that safety eye on. Pop it on the back there like that, and pop it in till it clicks all the way. And it's all the way in that it's going to go. Okay. And I like to use my tapestry needle or darning needle to try and make the outside edge then come a little bit more circular like that. Okay. But when we sew it onto our owl, it'll make sense. And we're going to leave this long tail now on there, because that'll come in handy for attaching it. And we're not going to worry about that post, because when we attach it to the front of our owl, choose which side you want to use, because they're both the same more or less, but then they can alter slightly. We're going to attach our owl's eye like that. And this is where pins come in handy, because you can place your eye. And this eye again, I need to put the back on this one. I've not completed the back on that one. And the eye on this one, let's grab a pin and pin them in place like that, and it gives you an idea then of how your eyes are going to look on this one. Now again, like I said, this is 6 rows I've done for the eyes, okay, 6 rows and 6 rows. On my first run at this, on my prototype one, okay, there's his little friend, I did 5 rows. So if you prefer the smaller circle around there, do 5 rows, okay. And these are clear eyes, I didn't put anything behind those. So you can do 5 rows if you like, or the 6 rows I did there. But these eyes, let me explain, once we sew these eyes on, because we need to go underneath and to the body there, these eyes do shrink a little bit with the sewing on. So that's the next thing we're going to do now, is just mattress stitch between the eye and the body of the owl all the way around. And I'm going to remove one in order to do that, and do one at a time. So it's mattress stitching next. So I've taken the plastic bit off the eye because I was finding that a little bit off-putting. Couldn't quite find my my centre. So I've got my long tail now, and I'm going to pop it onto a darning needle. There we are, like that. I've zoomed in a little bit, so hopefully you can see a little bit better what I'm doing here. There we are. So I've got my eye there, and I'm going to go from the body. Grab it there. I'm not too fussy with my mattress stitch, to be honest. As long as I'm going back and forth from one side to the other, everything seems to look fine. And I'm going to grab the underneath part just about 3 or 4 millimeters in that stitch there. I'm not going right to the edge. Okay, so that's why the eye ends up being a little bit smaller. So again, I'm going to go onto the body section, just inside the brown line there. If you're using one colour, just go inside the underside of yours by a few millimeters. Onto the body again, and it's going to be that all the way around. Flattening my work as I go, just to make sure that I'm going all right. Just catching the underside there. If you can see, hopefully you can see. And pulling that mattress stitch in. And that does make the eye a little smaller. Like that. Under the underside. All the way around. And line up your other eye then when you finish that, and do exactly the same with the other eye. I'm going to dig down into the stuffing just a little bit. That's the way I like to do it. I feel like I get a better fixing that way. But that's just my style. And keep flattening the eye down and checking where you're going and that it's still where you want it to be as you go around. And as you can see now, it's pulling that little brown area into a narrower band as we work our way around that way. So although the eye looks a little bit big at this stage, it won't be by the time we finish sewing it on. Checking our lining up as we're going along. As you can see, that's coming on quite nicely. It's tucking that brown section in as we go around, and we're nearly back where we started from. Let's pull that mattress stitch in a little bit like that. That's a nice little bit of tension and pulls that excess bagginess of the eye in nice and neatly there. Making sure that I've got everything tucked in. I'm just going to put a little knot there now and call that eye completely satisfactory to my taste. And I'm going to feed my tail through. Bring it out somewhere in the body, down there like that, and chop that tail off, and that eye is nicely sewn on now. As you can see, there's a little bit of anomaly there where the colour change is showing through a little bit, but I would take that as a little bit of a homemade look. I'm going to cut that little bit of fuzz off there like that, and if you get that, well, nature is unique, isn't it? So go ahead now and do the other eye. There's my other eye attached, and as you can see, it's pinned in place. And you can see with the sewing around that it does actually shrink that brown area quite a little bit and just gives a nice little brown border to the eye. But again, the colour choices are going to be yours. You go with whichever colour you want. You can go with a plain yellow, a white, a cream, a green, whatever colour suits you best. And I'm going to carry on now and mattress stitch this eye in place exactly the same as I did this one. Okay? That mattress stitch as you go around, which pulls in the eye nicely. It makes it nice and round and puffy. And like I said, these pieces are so small, it's they're quite fiddly and twiddly, but I quite like the way they come out, and they're unique in their own way, and I like uniqueness. So finish off now. I'm going to take that up there underneath and do a little knot out of the way. I'll call my eyes done, and then we're going to move on to doing the little wings. It's not quite so fiddly with the larger ones, so if you do decide to buy the pattern, the larger eyes are a little easier to work with. Again, I'm going to grab my tapestry or darning needle and fluff those out a little bit, just to make them a little bit more central like that. And there you go. With something so small, it's very, very fiddly. But I think the slight differences where the colours join, because there's only 2 rows going on to 4 rows, I think is ever so cute there. So next we're going to do the wings. Woo-hoo, woo-hoo. So this is our little wing piece. Okay, it's 12 rows total, and I've split mine 4 and 8, but you could do it one colour, of course, if that's what you prefer to do. I'm going to cinch up the one end. Make sure that your tail is on the far left or far right, depending on whether you're left or right-handed, okay? And then cinch your work up at the bottom in the normal way. Let's get that beige tail out of the way there. Cinch it up and a few knots in there to seal it off. A couple of knots is going to do absolutely fine. Excuse the dogs, they're playing in the hallway, creating havoc. I'm going to feed that through there like that. Snip that off because we don't need that. Put that to one side now. Then I'm going to pop my tail for the other side on the darning needle like that. And with my tail on the far left, I'm going to gather this in neatly, okay, because this is my way around not doing a waste yarn cast on and sealing a tube, and we're aiming for about 4 centimeters from there to there, okay. Once you've gathered it in manually like that, a partial gathering in, okay, so it's like that, and then we're going to slip stitch across the top like that, just to neaten up that edge all the way along, from back to front, all the way along like that. But if you prefer to do a waste yarn cast off and seal the tube, then that's absolutely fine as well. Of course you can do that. There we are, that's done and finished, and I think that looks quite neat and tidy. The next stage is to fold this in half, okay, because the wing is way too big to go on our owl that size. So we're going to fold it in half, and we're going to mattress stitch down that line and down that line there. So match up your lines, and like I've said a million times before, I'm sure I have, I am not the best at mattress stitch, so you're going to do a grand job compared to mine. feed that tail up to the top. And where our seam is, there, okay, we're going to flatten it like that. So that seam then will go flat against the owl's body, and we're just going to slip stitch now across the top, same as we did the first time round, just to seal that off and make it nice and neat. Where's my tail gone? I buried it. Okay, on my way with that. Slip stitch across the top. I think I've got just enough yarn in order to do it. There we go. That'll be great. Just a few stitches to neaten that top edge up. And if I snip one of those, there we are, that'll be, give me a little bit more, like that, to tie that off. There we go, and there's our little wing done for our owl. So do the same now for the other wing, and we'll attach them to the body of the owl. I'm just going to bury this tail now. So here's our owl. I've attached one wing on the other side, and I'm going to grab another pin now. And when you put your owl on the floor like that, make sure that, if I show you, if I put the ruler there, if that's the floor, make sure that your wing isn't quite touching the floor, okay, isn't quite touching the table. We wanted it to be a little bit higher than the bottom of the owl's base there. We don't want the wing to be touching the floor. So attach him there like that, and there's our little wings attached to our owl. Okay, make them as equal as you can. I'm going to pin mine in place now. And then eyeball to make sure that I'm happy with the placement of those little wings. And I'll put some matching yarn now on a darning needle, and we'll mattress stitch those little wings into place. So this is the one wing, and I've got him held on there with the little pins to place him. Okay, I'm going to start at the top, so I'm going to do a little stitch there to start off. I've got a long tail on here, probably too long if I'm honest. There we are. Let's start with a little knot. Take that in there like that, that's great. And we're going to mattress stitch just above the line there, okay, which will pull that in. I'm actually going to remove that pin now because I can hold it in place with my thumb. And back to the body. Back to the body there. And just at the top, not right at the top, just inside there like that, okay? Back to the body. I like to grab some stuffing with my stitching if I can. Gives a nice strong fixing. And again, I'm not going at the top, I'm going a little bit down, about 2 or 3 mils down, and grabbing the top of that stitch there like that. I'm pulling that through. Back to the body, back up. Few mil down, back up, down and up to grab a little bit of that stuffing if I can. Like I said, that's just my style. You've got your own style, I'm sure. Pull that mattress stitch tight, down into the body again. And now we're going to go underneath now. Pull that tight like that. Okay, so that's tidy, so we're going to pop that up now like that, and we're going to mattress stitch underneath. So catching the underneath of our wing now, onto the body like that. Underneath and onto the body, underneath, onto the body, all the way along the underneath of the wing. And I'm looking forward to seeing the colour combinations you come up with for your various sizes of owls. This is the smallest one, made on the 22 pin, completely on the 22 pin. And the written pattern, which is only a few pounds in my Etsy shop, will have the sizes for making on a 40 pin, which gives you a medium sized owl, and on a 46-48 pin, which is the largest owl. And then you'll have a complete owl family then. So we're back around there now, back to that side there, pull that mattress stitch in a little bit, flop that wing down, and I'm going to go back through there like that. Actually, I'm going to put a little stitch there on the end, just to make sure that I've caught the end of that wing there like that. And then I'm going to go back underneath. And I'm going to finish with a little knot under the armpit, where it's going to be less obvious. There we go, like that. Okay, and then hide the tail inside the work, if the stuffing will let me come through, that is. There we go, sorted. So again, trim that off and do exactly the same thing the other side. And if your little wing is sticking out a little bit too much to your liking, you can always put a little stitch in between the side of the wing and the body there like that. I suggest using a matching yarn this time if you're going to be doing that. Okay, other than that, you can leave your little wing sticking out. I may very well put a little stitch in there. See how we feel now in a minute once I finished mattress stitching this side on. And there's our little owl wings complete. So let's move on to making the beak. Moving on to the beak, another fiddly little piece of 6 rows. Okay, I've chosen an orange for the beak, but you could do a yellow or whatever colour you think will suit your project. And it's simple, this one. We're going to cinch one end and cinch the other end. And it's fiddly diddly. Once you get the cinching done though, it's not so bad then, and we can stretch the stitches out a little bit then. There we go. Once you get to that stage, you win it then. So cinch, and we need to add a few knots to both ends of these cinched areas. And I'm using DK for this, okay? I tried an iron and it was way too thick to get the results I wanted. So a couple of little stitches in there like that to secure that off. And that's done. And we can bury the tail in there somewhere. We don't need that tail, but we will need the other one. So we can snip that one off. We're going to do the same the other side. Cinch that tight. Couple of little knots and stitches. 2 is usually more than adequate, I find, for this. So once we've got our little cinched piece like that, we're going to fold one end in and the other end into the middle. Okay, so we got like a little coffee bean shape. and then we're going to double that coffee bean shape up again, like that. Okay, and then we're going to put a couple of little stitches in the end, which is a bit tough to get through, so bear with it, and then you'll get the needle through. This is a blunt ended one. I have got a sharp ended one, and maybe I should be using that one. And just mattress stitch down the length of the beak all the way down to the bottom, which isn't very far because it's only 6 stitches, all the way down to the bottom. Doesn't take any time at all. And there we are, down to the bottom. Now I find this little beak is still a little bit too chunky for my liking. I got a little bit of a tail, so I'm going to pop that in there with the darning needle. So along the bottom there now, where the seam is, okay, I'm going to get my needle and I'm going to put it about 2/3 of the way up, and I'm going to push down, push down, push, 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 push as hard as you can in between your 2 fingers like that, which brings that together again, okay, and pull that needle out, and then quickly mattress stitch again to seal that bottom 2/3 up, which hopefully will give us a bit more of a pointy beak. Okay, so holding that as tight as you can now, and that'll make that little beak quite firm as well. All the way back up to the top. You can see now I'm using a DK and not an Aran yarn. The Aran yarn was quite a fight, and this is quite adequate, the DK yarn. So all the way back up to the top, little knot to finish off if you can get your needle in there, because it's quite tight now. There we go. Little knot just to make sure everything is stuck. And there we have our tiny, tiny little beak. Isn't that ever so cute? So keep that seam facing downwards, and we're going to attach it to our little owl now. Okay, smack bang in the middle of his eyes like that. So no measurements to worry about. Wherever you've placed your eyes, wherever you're happy your eyes are, put your little nose there like that with the seam facing downwards, smack bang there, and we're going to mattress stitch it into place. And we're not going to wait, we're going to do it now. So again, the body there like that, underneath of the beak, and this little beak now is a tough little thing because there's so many layers all squidged up together. Make sure that beak stays central. Back onto the beak, onto the body in between the eyes. A curved needle would also be handy here if you've got one. Watch your eyes and everything there. Gently does it, not to catch any of your threads or your other pieces that you've put on place there. Check positioning as you're going along to make sure you're happy with how the little beak is coming along. And I think it's starting to bring on some character now with the addition of the little beak. And all we need to do next now is the feet. And I'll show you a little bit of contouring as well. Shaping to the head. It's nothing much, but if you decide you want to do it, it does add a little extra dimension. Now sometimes I like to go around twice with these little pieces to make sure that they're totally secure, but on wiggling that little beaky nosy thing, it's looking absolutely fine. So one round of the mattress stitch, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to pop my little knot in at the bottom, Great stuff. Push my tail through and chop that off and call our little beak done. Now he's starting to really look like a Gwdihŵ, isn't he? There we go. I could have been a little bit straighter with my eyes, but I'm sure you will be very, very straight with your eyes. So let's prepare the little feety feets now, and we'll attach those as well. So moving on to the feet for our little Gwdihŵ, we've got our 6 rows knitted here in an orange to match the beak. And we're going to cinch one end and cinch the other end. And like I said, these pieces are quite twiddly, but once you've got both ends cinched, you're away to go, and then you can stretch your work a little bit then to stretch out those stitches. Put one tail on a darning needle, and the construction is a little bit like doing the beak this time, and we're going to put a couple of knots in there, one stitch and one knot, and we can get rid of that tail by threading it through. We don't need that one, we're going to deal with the other tail instead. So snip that one off. Don't need that one. Pop that to one side. Put the other tail on the darning needle now. And cinch that end up. And a stitch and a knot again. Cinch it up nice and tight. Couple of stitches and a knot to secure, and that's done. And then you end up with a little cup shape like that. And in order to make the foot, if we make that cup a little deeper, we need to fold it in half and like that, okay, and then fold it in half again, okay, and we're going to mattress stitch up then along the 2 sides there to seal that up. So I'll run you through that once more. We're going to fold it down once. It kind of finds its own way in some respects. You'll find it yourself. So it's a third folded down and the other third back up to the top like that, and then we can add a little stitch there to bring that together, and then I'm going to mattress stitch from one side to the other all the way down. Doesn't take very many stitches to mattress stitch this down at all. It's only a small little foot, and when you get down to the bottom then you can put a few little stitches in there like that, add a little knot which helps like that, and there's our little foot done. Now carry on and do the same with the other 6 row piece, and we'll attach them to our little owl. And there we have our 2 little feet ready to fit onto our little owl. And if we bring our little owl into screen there we go. We're going to pop our little feet there on the bottom there, more or less either side of his little beak, as you can see. Now leave the tail on, obviously, once you've finished seaming up, okay, that long tail. And your seam there, put that down to the floor, down to the bottom, so you get the neat side facing upwards. Alright, now we need to push this little foot into the base of our owl. Make sure your owl is sitting flat on your work surface. Okay, turn my foot the right way around and push it in like that. Now if you've got a pin is very handy. Pop that foot right in there like that, and then hold it up, and you want the foot to not cause the owl to falter at all when it's sitting on the floor. So I'm going to stick a little pin in there like that, and then I'm going to mattress stitch around, starting at the bottom there like that. I might very well go around twice just to make sure that I've got a really good solid foot in place there. I want the foot to angle outwards a bit, so again keep checking your position, make sure that it's flat to the table. Okay, you see it from the bottom there like that, it's flat, okay, because otherwise our owl is going to tilt forward, it's not going to sit flat on this work surface at all. So push that little foot in like that so it's nice and snug, and a nice chunky little foot for our owl. Mattress stitch along the bottom and the side a little bit like that. Now when it comes to the top, don't bend it down, we want to leave it flat like that, okay? So remember now that our owl is flat to the floor, so what we want to do is to mattress stitch now where the foot is meeting the body there, okay? So we don't want to go deep, we don't want to go down there. Keep that foot folded up, bring the needle up, and then mattress stitch across more or less the top of the foot where it's meeting the body. Like I said, sometimes for this I'll go around twice, and that gives a really nice strong fixing then, but you might find that doing it once will be more than enough. And pull on that mattress stitch, so nice tight stitching, and where it's quite quick to sew these on, doesn't take long at all. Pull that mattress stitch back round to the back, I'll take my pin out now, double check that I'm happy with the placement of that foot, and it's looking really nice. There we are, our owl is standing nicely there, okay, he's standing, he's not falling over, he's looking really nice. So I'm happy and I can finish off my mattress stitch now. Just in case I need to unpick, which happens from time to time, if I don't get it quite right. And there's no harm in unpicking and starting again. So I'm pulling that mattress stitch in as well now as I'm coming round to the bottom. And I'm happy with my one round. My foot there is nice and firm, it's not wobbling anywhere, and my little owl is standing up lovely. So I'm going to pop a stitch in there now and a knot, call that little foot done, hide my tail, feed that through, snip that off, and do exactly the same now with the other foot. And with the other foot, make sure that you line it up so it looks nice when it's fitted on the body. These little beaks a bit twisted now. So there's our foot there. So make sure that when you fit your other foot that you're happy that it's symmetrical, and remember to push it in to the body there like that, okay? So it looks like it's nice and squidged under his body there, but it's not under his body, if you know what I mean. We want it to be flush with the body. So I'm going to position mine now. I'm going to grab my pin again. There's my pin. Push him in like that. Hold him in place while I turn him upside down. I'm going to pop that pin in there to secure it just straight down like that. And then have a look at the symmetry of it from the bottom. It's looking reasonably good, and from the top obviously the pin is pushing it up a little bit, but that's fine. So we're going to start stitching that, and like I always suggest, check as you're sewing around, don't just go for it, but do a few stitches, check again, a few stitches, check again, because it's easy to unpick your work if you need to, if it's less stitches than more. Okay, so let's put a few stitches in there to secure it. I'm going to pop my pin out now because I'm more than happy with that. Squidge that down, and I can see now that it's looking reasonably good. I just need to keep pushing that foot into the body there like that, so it matches the other side. And as I'm mattress stitching around now, you'll find that that'll pull that little foot into the body. There we are. Let's check the positioning again. Yeah, it's looking nice from where I am here at the moment. So turn him around. We're going to work our way around the side. And push that little foot into the body there, right? So it's nice and plump. And remember now, we're going to mattress stitch along the front there. Okay, we're talking probably about 1, 2, maybe the 3rd stitch row up the foot by the time that that foot is folded up towards the body there, and that's what pulls our little foot nicely into the body there. Okay, and of course with the larger ones I've done a different style foot for them, and you'll find that on the pattern. It was nigh on impossible to do that style of foot for this size of owl, so I came up with this little idea instead. You can use I-cord if you've got an I-cord maker. You can do that. Just check that foot position again, and I'm happy with that. It's looking really nice. So I'll carry on stitching. Yeah, an I-cord maker would definitely be advantageous if you wanted to make a claw-like foot with I-cord, but I stuck with this because not everybody's got access to an I-cord maker, and then this way is accessible to everybody to make the little owl. So I'm coming back around now with my stitching, double checking my position, and as you can see from the top there, there's his little feet either side of his beak. Okay, there they are from the underside. You can see that they're sitting flat with his little bottom there. Okay, so when he's on the table he's not going to fall over. So I'm going to finish off with a little stitch now and a knot and hide my tail, and I'll call my little tutty feets done on my owl. So let's snip that off, and we're happy with that. And there's our little owly feet all done and fitted. Isn't that super cute? So I've got my ruler here and I'm measuring 8 centimeters in a matching yarn, but if you want to do a different yarn, that's up to you. And I'm going to loop it around us 3 times. So I've got 4 and I've got 5 there. Okay, and then I'll do 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. I'm going to do 5 both sides, but you can change it up what you want. And just to let you know, that was one of the tails from my little tails pile on the right hand side of my desk there. So keep your tails, they're always handy. So I'm going to trim those now, so I end up with some 8 centimeter lengths or so. Do longer or shorter, you can alter that to suit yourself. There we go, and we've got 10, hopefully 8 centimeter lengths of matching yarn. I'll show you 2 ways of attaching it to the owl depending on how you prefer to do it. I'm going to show you with a crochet hook and also with a darning needle. Let's split our sides up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 5 and 5 little pieces of yarn there for our owl. So let's grab one. Do it with the darning needle first. It's a little twiddly with this because it's a small piece. So by all means use larger pieces and then trim them down later. Fold it in half and put the loop through the darning needle there like that. And right through the tip, somewhere like that, put your darning needle through. Hold on to the tails and pull the loop through like that. And all you need to do now is to pull those tails through that loop like that. If you're not used to using a crochet hook, then that's the way you can do it, like that, and just pull it tight. Okay, and that's your little tuft done. Now if you want to do it with a crochet hook, again fold your 8 centimeter piece of yarn in half, and again push your crochet hook through somewhere like that, grab it, pull it through, grab that like that, then hit the tail and pull that tail through, and it's done like that. So there's the two ways that you can add your tufts to your little owl. So carry on now and add 5 tufts there and 5 tufts there. Once you finish doing your tufts both sides, you'll end up with something that looks like that. Now we can improve on that, okay, and it's simple to do. I like to lick my finger and damp it, and where you can see the twirl of your yarn, twirl in the opposite direction like that, and split the yarn into its component parts. This is 3 strands, so split that, and it gets fuzzy and fluffy like that. So do that with every one, twirl it the opposite way like that. Thank you, Charlie. And split like that, and do that for every one that you've got there like that. Twirl it the opposite way and split, and you will end up with a lovely fuzzy little tufty bits on each of the ears of your owl. And there's the last one done on that right hand side of my owl. And if you fuzz it out and fluff it out like that, then you can see the difference that you get on both sides of your owl. Which side do you prefer, the fuzzy side or the not so fuzzy side? And of course you can add more if you want to, add more strands than I did. Okay, so I'll carry on and do this side now, and then we move on to one last step, which is totally optional. First step for me is to sort out my wings. They're a little bit too sticky outy for me, so I'm going to pop a little stitch on the underside there with a matching yarn, just a little holding stitch like that, and then I'm going to decide what angle I want my wing to be at. Little holding stitch. Do I want it flat down like that, or do I want him to have a little bit of attitude, as if he's got his hands on his hips and saying, what are you looking at? So I'm going to have mine with a little bit of attitude, so I'm going to put mine there, line up the stitch to there like that, and just put a little stitch in that side, and that'll hold that hopefully in place, so it looks like he's got his hands on his hips. And I'll do the same the other side. So mine are looking a little bit like that. So he's got a little bit of a curve. Okay, but you position yours whichever way suits you. That's going to be your little final touch for your particular little owl. And of course you don't have to do it at all. You can leave the wings free flowing if you want to do exactly whatever they want to do. So I'm going to call that a day, bury my tail, and do the same the other side. So these little final touches that you do to your owl, you can make them to suit yourself. Sticky out wings, flat wings, crazy hair, whichever you'd like to do. You could even put a little bow in the centre there if you wanted to do a little little one with a little bow in the middle. Now then, this next step is an optional extra, okay? And it just shapes the head a little bit more. You don't have to do it. And on the 22 you can probably do it with a standard darning needle, which I've got here, but for the larger models you're going to need something like this upholstery needle, or a doll needle it's called as well, but it's quite long, maybe 8 inches long. Okay, it does make the job easier, but I will do it with a darning needle because that's what most people have to hand. And I'm going to insert my needle around about there, just above the wing level there. Okay, I'm going to insert my needle there and I'm going to take it straight across and bring it out exactly the same, the opposite side, as near as possible anyway, if the stuffing will allow. There we go, here she comes. I'm going to pull that through like that, and I'm going to leave a tail on the opposite side. Okay, now I'm going to bring my stitch underneath to the next stitch down and bring it back around, back over to the opposite side. If you can see, it's difficult with that. There we go, here she comes, straight through there like that. And then we have 2 lengths of yarn coming through. Now what this does is going to pull in the sides of your owl, and you can see it's happening that side already. Now how much or how little you pull this in is going to be entirely up to you. I'm going to put a little knot in there now and do it in the same yarn colour, and then it's not going to be seen so much. So a little tug on that yarn like that, and can you see the difference? It just pulls in that little bit like that. You can pop the ears down a little bit more like that then, and you get that lovely owly shape. So I'm happy with that little knot, so I'm going to add another little knot to secure it totally. And again, this is a completely optional extra, you don't have to do it. Your owl would be perfectly pretty without it. And bury those tails now. And then we can trim those tails off, and we are 100% finished with our owl. And like I said, if you'd like to buy the pattern for the larger owls, it'll be in my Etsy shop. I'll pop a link on the screen for you to see there. And that'll be for the 40 pin and the 46/48 pin. And I'll show you those owls in a second so you can see the size difference. And there's our little owl complete. That's the 22 pin owl complete. This is my prototype here. Okay, that's the first one I made, and then refined a few little areas just for my own taste. These are smaller eye circles here. Okay, I think I did 5 rows for these ones, so if you prefer that, do 5 rows. And of course this was 6 rows split into 2 and 4. So there you go, there's our little owl done, and there's our little tapering section done on the sides there, which you can see pulls in the shape of the owl exactly the same. And I find this really strange because this one looks a little bigger, and it's exactly the same row count, 60 rows. I think this yarn doubled up has made it a little smaller, but it's not smaller by much. So there you go, there's our owls. I hope you like this project, and if you do, please give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to check out the pattern, and if you've not subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button, and the bell icon will let you know when I've uploaded new content. Okay, and if you don't decide to buy the pattern, that's absolutely fine, but maybe a small donation to a local no-kill animal shelter or animal rescue would be absolutely fantastic. You know how much I love my animals, and support of those institutions are very important to me as well. So I'll run you through now the other little owls so you can see them. 2 secs. So as I've already shown you, this is the small owl made on the 22 pin machine, and from tip of his ear to the bottom of his feet, he's about 11 centimeters tall. Okay, and in inches, that is approximately 4.5 inches tall. Okay, so that's the itty bitty ones there. Keep them in shot for you to see them. And this is the middle sized one. Isn't she cute? As you can see, her feet are completely different. Okay, I couldn't do that on the 22, it was just too fiddly to do, and she's got some lovely patterning across her belly there, and all the details for that are in the pattern. The size of that medium size one is just over 7 inches tall, and in centimeters that's about 19 centimeters tall, and that's the middle sized one, which I've changed the colors. I've left those wings floppy because they're not double layered and they don't need to be anchored down, but you can anchor them down if you like to. So that's the middle owl there, middle owl, 2 baby owls, and I don't know if there's room for the large owl. We'll move them out of the way for a little bit. And then the largest owl made on the 46 machine in my, of course I've got the Addi 46, but this will knit up on the 48 equally as well. And again, he's got a patterned tummy, bright blue eyes, and I've done a grey-blue combination colours there. Again, he's got the fuzzy ears and loose arms this time because they hang better when they are not doubled up. They don't stick out quite so much, but again, you can still add some attitude to your owl by popping them out like that if you want to. Okay, so the dimensions of the large owl, if you decide to buy the pattern, he's approximately 22 centimeters tall, which in inches is about 8.5 inches tall. So he's quite a large one. I'm saying he, but the large one is a large one. So there's the large and there's the medium, and of course you got the little tutty ones, little tutty ones there. So thank you very much for joining me once again. It's been fabulous having you with me. I hope you enjoyed making the little Gwdihŵ here. And if you do decide to buy the pattern, fantastic. Thank you ever so much. And if you decide to make a donation to a local animal charity, that's fantastic as well. Thank you for that. And I'll see you very, very soon. So goodbye from the Gwdihŵ, and I'll see you again very soon. Hwyl fawr nawr. Bye for now. Boop.